Welcome to the Fit Strong Women Over 50 podcast, episode 113. Hi, I'm Jill. Thanks for joining us today.
And I'm Chris. Jill and I are your co-hosts and the founders of the Becoming Ellie community.
I know you're wondering why we're called Becoming Ellie. Ellie was the Norse goddess of aging who wrestled Thor and beat him. Chris and I thought, hey, we want to be like Ellie.
You can find out more about us at our website, becomingellie.com. And Ellie is spelled E-L-L-I.
Hey, Chris, our guest today is Jill Angie. She's the founder of Not Your Average Runner.
Yes, she gives us lots of great information about running, some tips about clothing, and...
Yep, she gives us some tips about how to start. She's full of lots of great advice. Let's go to the podcast.
Jill Angie is a certified running coach and personal trainer who wants to live in a world where everyone is free to feel fit and fabulous at any size.
Jill says that she became a triathlete and ran half marathons, and she noticed that there weren't a lot of people out there who looked like her. So she founded Not Your Average Runner in 2013 to show that runners come in all shapes, sizes, and speeds. Jill and her coaches help women to start running or to improve their running.
She is the author of the book, Not Your Average Runner, Why You're Not Too Fat to Run, and The Skinny on How to Start Today. She has also published 5K and half marathon training plans for beginning runners.
Jill also hosts the Not Your Average Runner podcast. Welcome, Jill. It's great to have you with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
Well, let's just start with, why did you start running and what prompted you to create Not Your Average Runner?
I actually started running about 25 years ago, and I did it because I wanted to lose weight. And so I thought, well, running burns a lot of calories, so I'll just run and I'll lose all this weight. That did not work. But I did kind of fall in love with running along the way. And I think, I had a lot of mental drama about being fat and being a runner and, I didn't want to tell anybody I was doing it, but eventually people found out, and I kind of, the folks that I worked with kind of started to think of me as like the runner girl, which was a little weird because I'm fat. Why do people think of me as the runner girl? But probably I've been running, I started the business in 2012, 2013. So I guess I'd been, running for about 15 years by that point. And I was working in the pharmaceutical industry and just realizing it's not what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And so I thought, what else could I do? And I thought maybe I could help other fat women, work on their fitness. And I actually started by opening a personal training studio. And then I realized that I also liked helping women start running. And so I wrote a book and started the whole Not Your Average Runner brand and business. And God, the rest is history. So it's been probably 8 or 9 years since that all got started. And it's been a really fun ride since then.
That's great.
Can anyone be a runner?
Pretty much. Yeah. I think so. Yeah. I always say you're never too fat to run, because if you can walk a couple miles, then you can throw some running intervals into those miles and voila, right? In my mind, that makes you a runner. But I almost exclusively work with fat women, and I've created training plans that help them run 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, full marathons, even ultra marathons. I have some clients that are doing 100 mile trail races. And so I kind of believe that running really starts in the mind, and that it's about 80% mental, and that your body will do what your mind tells it to do. So a lot of the work that I do with my clients and with people who listen to my podcast is working on the mental space.
Boy, I think that's so true. Yeah.
Yeah, mental is a big part of that. Why is running so strongly associated with losing weight? That seems to be something that everyone goes to. I'm going to lose weight. Let's run.
Oh, yeah. Frustrates me to no end. I mean, there's a lot of talk, and like the fitness industry wants people to go on a diet so that they can lose the weight and gain it back, and then they can keep getting money from them. And I mean, it's a whole huge industry, and basically the messaging that has been provided to a lot of people, myself included, is that you need to exercise to lose weight, and you need to exercise to earn your calories, and all of this. I don't know. I don't know how deeply we want to get into that on this particular show, but there's a lot of fat phobia out there, and there's a lot of belief that being fat is a terrible thing, right? The worst thing you could be is fat, and nobody wants to be fat. And truly, like, being fat is just, you have more fat cells on your body than somebody who has less, right? But I think like the diet and fitness industry really hinges on creating this need within people to lose weight. And also the fitness industry is like, hey, because everybody wants to lose weight, did you know that running and cycling and all of these other fitness activities are great ways to lose weight? They're actually not. I mean, you don't really burn that many calories. Running, you burn, I don't know, for a mile, you burn maybe 100 calories. That's like, I don't know, like half a granola bar. It's not like you're creating this huge calorie deficit. So it's kind of like, it's kind of this urban myth that you can run off the weight, because you
Right.
actually can't. But, the diet and fitness industry would not make money if we didn't believe that. So they keep perpetuating the myth.
I know. I was on a rowing machine at the gym the other day, and it gives you distance, like meters and all that, but it also gives you that whole calorie count thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me, I think, 4 minutes to burn maybe, I don't know, 50 or 60 calories. I just noticed it because I thought this was a lot of work.
Yeah.
If I was doing this to be burning calories, I'd have to sit on this thing for an hour to even come close to burning off my lunch or something.
Yeah. Yeah. The math does not add up at all.
Well, it seems like, there's a lot of talk about what runners look like, but most people don't look like that at all. And what does running actually do for our bodies?
Oh, God, running is so great for your body. I mean, first of all, it's amazing for your mental health. There is just something about the movement, like kind of moving your legs and moving your body, that allows you to release emotions, to release stress. So and it releases endorphins, which is a feel good hormone. So running does a lot for your mental health, but it also does amazing things for your body, right? It weight bearing exercise, especially high impact weight bearing exercise, helps you build stronger bones. It's really healthy for your joints. There's even some studies that show that running can help prevent osteoarthritis in later years. So it actually has some sort of a preventative effect on arthritis. And it's great for your heart and lungs. Like, that's kind of like the one thing that everybody goes to is like, oh, I need to improve it's good for my heart. But like, yes, 100% is great for your heart, great for your lungs, but like, it's just good for so much else. And I think that, for me personally, I have arthritis in both knees and both hips. Yay, genetics. And if I don't move my body, and in particular, if I'm not running like 3 times a week, I find that my joints hurt more, right? It's like kind of the opposite of what you'd think. Most people are like, oh, well, if you're fat and you're running, like you must be in pain all the time. I'm like, no, if I'm not running,
Right.
I'm in pain a lot more.
Well, they say if you don't move it, you lose it. Things start
Yeah.
to tighten up and it's harder to get going.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, with arthritis, one of the best things you can do for it is exercise of some sort, they say.
Yep.
What advice do you give people who want to become runners?
Well, first is, I think there's 2 pieces of equipment that you need to get pretty soon after you start. I mean, maybe you don't need it for your very first run, but one, especially if you're a woman, get a good sports bra, because it is really uncomfortable to run. I have, an HG cup Like I have really big boobs. And if I don't wear an appropriate sports bra, like I am so uncomfortable. But really, if you're like a B or a C cup or higher, you should be wearing a motion control bra, high impact rated motion control bra, just to kind of keep your boobs from bouncing. And, first of all, it's a comfort thing. But second of all, if they're bouncing all over the place, it actually can throw off your gait, right? It can literally, like they're bouncing from side to side or whatever. It can like actually make you run a little funny. So that's number one. And then number two is to get fitted for running shoes. And I think the number one question I get asked is, what's the best running shoe? And the answer is always, it depends on your feet. So go to a running store, get fitted, and, have them measure your feet, have them watch you run and talk to you about your running routine. But as far as the actual starting of the running, I just say like, go out, warm up with a 5-minute walk and then run. And when I say run, I mean, for your first run, it should be just a nice, gentle jog, right? Just a trot, a jog for like 20 seconds and then walk for a minute and then, jog for 20 seconds more and then do that maybe 10 times, do a nice little cool down walk and you're done. And that's sort of your first run. And then see how you feel the next day. And if the next day you're like, I feel great, right? Then the next time you go out for a run, maybe you do 15 intervals, or maybe instead of 10 intervals of 20 seconds in a minute, you do 30 seconds in a minute, but like kind of like ease into it, because one of the biggest causes of injuries is not being prepared and overtraining and overdoing it. And then you're injured and you're not running, and that's no fun. Yeah,
that is something that I think many of us tend to do. It's like, well, if a little bit is good, more is better.
Right. Too much, too fast. It gets you in trouble every time.
Yeah. We were just talking about that with strength training. It's really easy to decide, I'm going to take up strength training. And then you go and
this isn't so hard. Boom, boom, boom. The next thing you know, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it's a month before you do it again because it takes that long to recover.
Yeah. Right. And then you don't see any of the gains of consistency. If you're only doing it once a month, then you might as well not be doing it at all.
Yeah, I like your idea of just start out slow, 20 seconds of running, trot jogging, basically, and then walking, and then build right up.
So you recommend the interval runs?
I do, actually. I mean, that's how I started running. Cause I thought, okay, I'll start this way and then I'll build up to running without stopping. And I actually did get to a point in my life where I was able to run 7 miles without stopping, but I always felt awful afterwards. And the less I walked, the slower I got, which is so counterintuitive. But when you throw in, targeted walk breaks, your body gets to recover and then you actually can go faster on the run. So I tried running without stopping for a few years and I was like, I don't think this is for me. And then I went back to the interval method, and that has served me really, really well. So I kind of recommend that for most runners, especially fat runners, and especially if you're over 40.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, our listeners are our podcast is Fit Strong Women Over 50. So most of our listeners fall into that category.
Well, you mentioned a little bit about the mental game of running, and how do we overcome that feeling that we're not really a runner? And what if we don't want people to see us attempting to become a runner?
Yeah, that's a big question. Because I think it's really, really common, especially if you don't have a typical runner's body. And by typical runner's body, I mean what the fitness and diet industry tells you is a typical runner's body.
Yes, that very small, small, compact body.
Yeah. That actually very few people have,
right.
Interestingly enough. But yeah, I think what happens is we think, oh, everyone's going to be looking at me. Everyone's going to be thinking things about me, right? Whether it's like, wow, what does she think she's doing? Or she's doing it wrong, or what have you, right? The concern is for sure what other people are going to be thinking about us. And this is something that I teach to my clients, is that honestly, like, other people's opinions are definitely not any of your business. And also when we go out and think, oh, everybody's looking at us, first of all, probably not. Like, most people are so wrapped up in their own stuff that they're not paying attention to anyone else. And second of all, even if they are paying attention to you, and even if they are thinking things about you, do you really want somebody, especially if it's a stranger, right? The unspoken opinion of a stranger to inform what you're going to do for yourself. Like, do you really want to put strangers in charge of what you get to do? And I think when I kind of frame it that way, at least for myself, when I think like, oh, all right, so basically if I don't go outside and run, I'm saying that strangers' opinions about my body are more important than me doing what I want to do. I'm like, oh, okay, well, that doesn't seem right. Like, I don't want to, that's not how I live my life. So I think that part of it is just recognizing like most people aren't going to have an opinion. They're not even going to notice you. There may be some that do. And honestly, like, who cares? I think that's a journey that a lot of women have to take. You know, it's not, we're taught as women that we should always be trying to look a certain way and trying to be attractive and look thin. And, you know, I don't know. Once I hit 40, I was like, that is ridiculous. And by the time I rolled past 50 years old, I was like, I cannot even be bothered with what other people think about me and my body because I've got too much important stuff to do. So I think, yeah, I'm not sure if that actually answered your question or not.
No, I think it did.
I want to flip it around for a minute. What do you think about people who, so if you're out there and you're either over a certain age or over a certain weight or whatever, and people feel then they then make encouraging statements to you like, oh, you're doing great, keep at it or whatever. But I always have this feeling like you wouldn't say that to someone. It's like, why am I being offended that you're saying something positive to me? Because I should be grateful. I mean, I should be happy by that.
Yeah.
I guess you're still self-conscious.
But there's also that feeling like, well, you wouldn't say that to me if I was 25 years old and 50 pounds lighter.
Yeah. So that's not an uncommon thing that comes up for people, right? They're like, you know, it's so funny. It's like, I want people to not say negative things to me, but then when they say something positive, that we just assume that it's coming from a negative place.
Right? That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it really is a reflection of what you think of yourself. Right. That's what it is. Yeah. It's like we're projecting our opinions of ourselves on other people. And if you're out there and you're just like, I'm just doing my thing and I'm so happy I'm doing my thing. And I truly am not concerned with what other people think. If somebody says, hey, good job to you, like you're not really going to be bothered by it. The only reason that we're really bothered by it is because we still have some of those residual opinions about ourselves that we're working on. So I mean, and this happens a lot if you're a runner and you're in a race, like say you're doing a 5K or 10K or something, and it happens a lot that you're out there and you're doing the run walk method, right? And so you're running and you're walking and you're running and you're walking and you are switching from running to walking. And there's always that person that's like, don't give up now. You've got this. Right. And you're like, listen, I know
this is part of my training. Yeah. This is my plan.
So I think that like, when that happens to me or when somebody cheers me on and I just kind of roll my eyes like, all right, yeah. I just decide that everybody is cheering for me. Like that's the mindset that I go into it with. I'm like, everyone that sees me is cheering for me. And sometimes they just don't know how to express it in a constructive way. And I just like leave it at that in my mind. It helps me anyway.
Right. That reminds me of the people that say you're almost there and you still have a long way to go.
Yeah. You're like a mile away. You're like, right. I am not almost there.
You're almost, my almost are different. But I think a lot of folks that cheer people on don't do the sport. So they don't realize that is not what you say to someone.
Yeah. They're just doing the best they can.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people say, well, have a nice day. And I know some people feel funny about that, which seems silly, but
yeah,
I think just being over 50 and, not fitting the world's version of what a runner looks like can be intimidating, whether you're trying to do weightlifting, you're trying to do a Zumba class and you don't know how to dance, or you're running, it's difficult to get beyond that. Remembering it's none of anyone else's business what you're doing if you're feeling safe and all of that.
And the other thing I always tell myself, if somebody, because this happens to me a lot on the internet, I'll post a video of myself running and I'll get all these people that are like, oh my gosh, your knees, you're destroying your knees. You should lose weight because your knees. I'm like, why is everybody so obsessed with my knees? But what I think to myself is like, oh, they're just confused. They don't know that you can run when you're fat and not destroy your knees. Like they just don't know. And so I'm like, I just need to educate them. That's all. It's a much better mental space than how dare they talk to me that way. Cause it's easy to kind of get it indignant. And I feel like when I'm feeling indignant, I'm not helpful. I don't feel good. I say stupid things or whatever. So I have to get myself into the space of like, oh, you just don't understand. Here, let me educate you.
What about cross training? What kind of cross training do you recommend to your clients?
I think for runners, I think cycling is a great cross training exercise. I think swimming is a great cross training exercise. I also, insist that they strength train at least twice a week. Not everybody does it. Cause I think, if you're somebody who loves to run, chances are good that strength training is not your favorite thing because they're sort of very different. But I do kind of, I lift twice a week myself. And I think that the reason that I'm able to run with arthritis in my knees and arthritis in my hips is that I also spend a lot of time strengthening my body. And that allows me to be able to do, to basically be a really fat runner at 54 years old and not have knee pain, right? Because that's a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, how can you possibly run and be fat? I'm like, I just take care of my body. It's just pretty simple. So cross training to me is like cycling and yoga and swimming are great options for runners, Pilates as well. And then also I love strength training and lifting very heavy things. Always lift the heavy things.
Yes.
So our next question, I kind of want to go back to our joints and, the joints, the ligaments, the tendons, all of those things have to work together with the muscles. Can you talk a little bit about that? When people say that, running will ruin our bodies, can you just dive a little deeper into that?
Yeah, sure. And just to be clear, I'm not a physician. I'm not a physical therapist.
Right.
But really like a lot of people think that running, like when they say running destroys your knees, I think there's confusion because your knees are actually fine. The joint is usually okay. It is the muscles and the tendons and the ligaments surrounding the joint that actually can get injured from running, whether you're fat or thin. Right. And I think if you're fat, you might feel the pain a little more intensely. Maybe not. I know some thin folks that have knee injuries that are like, no, that's some pretty intense pain. But there's like lots of injuries that happen, like IT band syndrome, where your IT band gets really tight and it rubs over this bony part of your knee and it feels like a sharp stabbing pain. It does not feel good. But it is not actually your knee that is in pain. It is, it's a piece of fascia. It's a tendon. So when a fat runner or just a runner in general experiences knee pain, like the vast majority of the time, it is muscular in nature. And a visit to the sports doc and some physical therapy followed up by a consistent strength training program will fix it and prevent it from coming back. And so I think that's right. Like, and I'm not saying that people don't tear their ACL, that people don't have meniscus tears, that people don't have bone on bone arthritis that's advanced so far that like running is actually a bad idea for them. But I think that's a very small proportion of the actual knee problems that runners face. And runners traditionally are like, yeah, strength training, I'll do that when I'm older. And then they get knee problems. They're like, oh, I've just got bad knees. I'm like, no, you just have weak glutes. That's all. Go take care of that. And then you can start running again.
And it's not weight that's causing it. It's just the wear and or the stress on your body and not having a strong enough body at times. Yeah.
And muscles doing things that they aren't designed to do because the one area is weak.
Yes, exactly. Right. You've got other muscles trying to like help out where they're not supposed to be helping out because your glutes are weak or something like that. So, it really is like bodies are complex. The knee joint is complex, but the actual knee joint is very rarely the problem. It is all of the surrounding structures that fail because we're not taking care of our bodies in support of being a runner.
Okay.
Is there anything unique that larger or older runners need to do when they're running? You mentioned a couple things, but
yeah. So again, I think if you're plus size, you're definitely going to want some kind of, I guess I'd say, compression wear. Like I usually wear tights that have a little bit of compression to them so that my belly and my butt they're a little more stabilized. It's just like kind of your bra, right? Like if I wear loose tights, everything is like jiggling and it's uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable when I run. So I would say if you're fat or even if you just, if you're not fat, but you have loose skin, which I think like a lot of women that have had children they're going to have like loose skin in their belly, just right. It's just the way, it's just the way it works. So I do think that compression wear is great for that because it kind of keeps everything sort of tight and keeps it from jumping around. And then also to that point, if you have loose skin or you're fat, you're overweight, I recommend a substance called Body Glide, which is basically an anti-chafing. It's comes in a stick. It's like mostly silicone. And then you can just put that in the areas of your body where you tend to get chafing. Because like chafing is uncomfortable and there's like nothing worse than like going for a really long run and you feel so good. But there's been some chafing on your body somewhere and you get in the shower and you're like, oh my God, it just hurts so bad.
I got into the shower at the gym one time and I had chafing. I didn't really realize, and I screamed.
Yes.
There was someone in the shower next to me in the locker room. Are you okay? Yes, it just hurt.
It just hurts. Exactly. So Body Glide can help with that. But other than that, I think, it's the world of fitness fashion is starting to recognize that there are a lot of fat people out there who want to look good and actually need functional gear and not just, kind of here, we're just going to put something cheap together in a plus size, in a plus size, right? I'm
going to guess that there's more running clothes available for all sizes now than there used to be.
Yeah, definitely. More running clothes in general, but the plus size market is starting to explode with choices, which is great. So you shouldn't really have too much trouble finding stuff that works for you. But I think otherwise, just taking it slow is probably the best piece of advice that I can give anyone. Just take it really, really slow. 'Cause running is harder on the body than walking for sure. Like there's no debating that. But it doesn't mean you can't work your way into it.
Great. So I saw on Facebook, you have a private Facebook group. I was reading your rules and that you don't allow your members to talk about diets and counting calories and, all that kind of talk. I'm just sort of wondering what happens. Why do you have that rule? What happens when people start talking about their macros and, all that what they eat, what they don't eat, and that kind of thing.
So the reason I have that rule is I want people to understand that you can be a runner in the body you have right now and that you do not need to lose weight to be a runner. And I feel like there are a lot of folks that come to my group. I know there are a lot of folks that come to my group because it feels like a safe space to them because they have decided, I don't want to lose weight. I'm not interested in counting calories. I just love my body the way it is. And I'm just going to, I want to be a runner and I don't want to mess around with all of that talk. And it can start to, and there's a few different things that happen when people talk about their weight loss. One is you've got folks who are recovering from eating disorders or have just made the decision, hey, I don't want to diet anymore, right? I'm rejecting the diet industry. And then once you allow the food talk, the calorie talk, it tends to take over. And then you've got people who are like, oh, great, I'm here because I want to be a fat runner. And all these people are talking about how they feel terrible in their bodies because they're overweight. Right. And so that kind of like alienate a whole bunch of people. The second thing is when you allow that kind of talk, next thing you know, you've got every Beachbody coach trying to sell their supplements. And I'm not about that. Right.
Yeah.
And so, and the third is there are plenty of running groups out there on the internet where you can talk about your food and your macros and your calories in detail. And my space is just not one of those spaces. And when I do see those posts, they get deleted immediately.
Okay. That makes sense.
So you do allow people to talk about fueling for their runs and, and their workouts. So what kind of advice do you give your clients about what to eat before or after or during a run and workout type thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very individual thing. So I do kind of encourage them to experiment. In general, I say don't eat dairy before a run. You will be sorry. Your stomach will reject it and you will be in the porta potty. But other than that, I let people, I give them guidelines. But in general, I say, if it's a short run, you don't actually have to eat beforehand, right? I don't eat before I go running. If I go running in the morning and it's like 3-4 miles or less, I won't eat ahead of time. That being said, some people prefer to eat, right? So I always encourage people to experiment. And then if somebody's going to be doing a run longer than 6 miles, that's when I say, hey, you might want to start thinking about bringing fuel during your run. And again, the training process, if you're training for a half marathon, for example, the training runs are where you start experimenting and trying out different things. Like I'll use a combination of commercial fuel, like Cliff Shot blocks or goo packets. And then homemade fuel. Like one of the things that I love is to take those little tiny baby potatoes and I'll roast them with some olive oil and kosher salt. And then like, I'll just pop one in my mouth every couple miles. And it's just like carbs and salt straight into my bloodstream. So yeah, so I'll mix it up like that.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah.
So they would be cold.
Oh yeah, they're cold. I mean, they're not like, ooh, yum,
Yeah, right.
Right. But they don't they're kind of flavorless and they're a little bit salty. So they replace some of the electrolytes that you're sweating out.
Yeah.
No, that'd be great. That makes sense because, it would have that salt on there.
Do you encourage people to do protein within 30 minutes? I've heard that's a thing.
I do. I mean, I think that if you're going to refuel with protein, which is not a bad thing for a longer run, definitely after strength training, like you probably want to get some protein in there. So I think yes, but also again, some people are like, it does not feel good to them to eat after they've gone running. So, and I don't encourage people to eat when they feel nauseous either. So I think you kind of have to play around with it a little bit. I don't think there's any hard and fast rules, but yeah, that is kind of like the general consensus is get some protein and some carb. If you've been running, you want to get some carbs in your body after you've been running too, right? To kind of like restock your glycogen stores.
So if you're going to if you're training for a half marathon, it's while you're training that you want to figure out what you use as fuel. The day of the race is not the day to say, hey, maybe I should try some goo.
That is accurate. Yes. Nothing new on race day. No new clothing.
That's what I was going to say.
No,
Nothing new.
Right. You don't. And if you've trained with intervals, you're not going to show up on race day and try to run the first mile straight through. Right. Cause then that's going to show up later on. You're not managing your energy very well. You're going to end up, slowing down later in the race. So always run the way you've trained, fuel the way you've trained, wear what you've trained.
Good advice. Tell us actually about Not Your Average Runner and the services you provide.
Sure. So, where should I start? I mean, I do have a free Facebook group called the Not Your Average Runner podcast community, official Not Your Average Runner podcast community, which is different. There's another group out there called Not Your Average Runner. That's not me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And you can tell the difference because the podcast community has like 25,000 people in it. And this other group has like 200 people in it. So, but mine does say official Not Your Average Runner. And so that's a great place to start. I also have a free kind of like beginner starting guide that will kind of get you, up and doing your first few runs. And you can find that at notyouraverage.com/running start, I think.
We'll put a link in the show notes. Okay.
And then I also have an online course that you can take called Up and Running, it's a 30-day course. And in that class, I teach all of the foundational skills of running, like proper running form and how to figure out your intervals and how to pace yourself so you can breathe comfortably and what gear you should get and how to strength train and how to stretch. And then also a lot of the mindset work. So I teach a lot of, I call it thought work, which is basically, looking at what you're thinking and figuring out how that's impacting you and then shifting it so that you can create the mindset that's going to help you become a successful runner.
so that you don't encourage us all to while we're running to be thinking, I hate this.
Yes. I mean, if you want to, that's fine. I don't think you're going to get very far. So yeah.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your podcast and your books.
Oh, sure. So the podcast again is called Not Your Average Runner. Gosh, I think I just recorded episode 261 or 62. So, it's been around for coming up on 5 years. Yeah, it does have an explicit rating because I tend to swear a lot on the show. So apologizing in advance if somebody wants to listen and has little kids around, it might not be the best choice for that moment in time. But really the podcast is a combination of running advice and mindset advice. And then I also do a lot of interviews of different people that I think would be of interest to the community. And then I have 3 books. One is called Not Your Average Runner. Then there's Not Your Average 5K and Not Your Average Half Marathon. That's
great. We'll put links in the show.
Yeah, they're all available as ebooks on Amazon. And then I think the first 2 are also available as print copies on Amazon.
Okay. And what did you say your website is?
NotYourAverageRunner.com. Yeah.
Okay. And that's where people should go if they want to find out more about you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, follow my Instagram because I'm super active over there as well. And again, that's Not Your Average Runner. And I do a lot of short videos there with running advice, especially for brand new beginners.
Excellent.
You do help people with running form.
Yes.
Like how to.
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Gait training and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, in my up and running class, we cover a lot of that, all of the foundational skills of running, especially for fat women. Because I have a lot of tips and tricks for how to make it easier on the body.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for all of this information and for being our guest today. It's been great.
Oh, thanks for having me. This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, very inspirational. I need to up my running, I think.
It's very rewarding, I'll tell you.
Yeah, it's great. Well, thanks again. We'll talk to you again soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, there was lots of great information there today. Jill shared some really good tidbits.
Yeah, I really like the part about the mental attitude. She has some very interesting thoughts about that, and reframing a lot of it really makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
It really does. Yeah. I tend to fall into the I hate this. Why am I doing this? Kind of thing. Life is better when you have positive ways of thinking.
Yeah. Not worrying about what everybody else is thinking because it's none of their business.
Yeah, that's true.
It was good.
The other thing was the advice to get compression clothes and a good sports bra and Body Glide. That's really good advice because I remember when I first bought compression sleeves for my calves, my legs felt so much better.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. And the whole point about shoes and what's a good pair of shoes, people's feet are so different, whether you have a high arch, a low arch, a wider foot, where you need support, everybody's different. And the running shoes will actually, measure your feet and watch how you run and recommend the right kind of shoe.
Yeah. I remember, Chris, you were using a certain pair of running shoes and you told me how much you liked them. But when I went to get my feet measured and they said, absolutely do not use those shoes for your feet because of they recommended something in the same brand, but a completely different shoe model, whatever you call it.
Right. Well, the lift, the arch, the balls of your feet, how wide your heel is. There's so many different parts of it. And of course, some people are more interested in trying to get things that look good. I know when my favorite shoe came out in a super bright orange with pink shoelaces, I was a little upset, but comfort is really important and not so much how it looks, I guess.
Yeah. Those bright colors you're not seeing as many of them in the running shoes right now that I guess they're going out of style. It kind of
changed, right? More dark grays and blacks and things like that. So
Jill Angie recommends the interval running. And I was doing that earlier this year, and it really is a good way to run. I guess I did do it last year, too, because I did that half marathon using a walk.
It's kind of like that couch to 5K method.
Yeah, but the couch to 5K works you up to running nonstop.
Right. Not the run walk.
Yeah, I used my Garmin had a run walk timer on it, so I could set it for how long I wanted to run and how long I wanted to walk, and it would buzz or vibrate every time I was supposed to change. That was a good, I like that way of running.
Right. It can keep you going when you're feeling a little overwhelmed.
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Well, I'd love to hear what our listeners think about today's episode. Let us know if you're a runner or you're interested in becoming a runner. We'd love to hear your experiences with it.
You can leave us a message at our website, becomingellie.com, or at any of our social media sites. You can find us at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And I think we're Becoming Ellie on all of those sites.
Right. If you go to our website, be sure to sign up for our newsletter, and that way you'll know what's going on in our world. Also, please join our Becoming Ellie private Facebook group.
Yes, we would love to have you join us. Oh, and if you enjoyed the podcast, please tell a friend. We would appreciate that.
Yes, please do that. They say that word of mouth is how most people find podcasts, so it would really help us.
It's been really good talking with you today, Chris. See you on the next episode of Fit Strong Women Over 50.
I'm looking forward to it. Bye-bye.
Bye.